Hello, friends. Imagine a man named Bob from Columbus, Ohio. Bob is a retired foreman, a guy who spent 40 years on his feet, tough as nails. He's 67 now, enjoying his Saturday afternoons mowing the lawn and watching the Buckeyes play. But lately, Bob has noticed something. When he tries to get out of his favorite leather recliner, he has to rock back and forth a few times. He has to use his palms to heave himself upward, feeling a sharp strain in his thighs. He laughs it off, telling his wife, "I'm just getting a little rusty, like my old Chevy." Does this sound familiar to you? Maybe it's not the chair. Maybe it's realizing you're taking the elevator for a single flight of stairs, or noticing your grip isn't what it used to be when you're opening a jar of pasta sauce. You think it's just the natural tax of age? But friends, what if I told you that this completely normal habit of dismissing your weakness is actually a hidden ticking time bomb in your body? A bomb that could strip away your independence and land you in a nursing home faster than you can imagine. I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to wake you up. Inside your body, a silent catastrophe is unfolding. Think of your muscles like the high-performance V8 engine of a classic American car. Over time, if you don't maintain it, the cylinders start to misfire. In medical terms, we call it sarcopenia, but I want you to see it for what it really is. Your muscles are quietly dying. It starts with the fast twitch fibers, the ones responsible for catching you when you slip. They don't just get tired, they wither away and are replaced by marbled fat and useless connective tissue. It's like the load-bearing walls of your house are being replaced with wet cardboard. You feel fine until that one Tuesday morning when you trip over the dog's toy or a stray rug. In a healthy body, your muscles would snap into action, bracing your fall. But with dying muscles, there's nothing to hold you up. You hit the floor with the full force of your body weight. The sound of a hip fracturing is something you never forget. Suddenly, you're in the back of an ambulance, paralyzed by the fear of the surgeon's bill and the realization that you might never walk back into your own home. In today's video, I am going to blow the whistle on this hidden danger. There is a lot of life-saving information today, so please stick with me until the very end. Before we dive into the dark truth, if you truly care about your health and maintaining your independence for years to come, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. And if you find today's video helpful, type the words "strong" and "independent" in the comments section below to support our community. Friends, listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between spending your golden years on a cruise ship or spending them in a sterile, white-walled nursing home being lifted out of bed by a mechanical Hoyer lift. Does this sound familiar? You wake up, you feel a little stiff, and you tell yourself, well, I'm just getting older. You go to get out of your favorite recliner and you realize you have to use your palms to push off your knees just to get your momentum going. You call it a senior moment or stiff joints, but I'm not here to sugarcoat things for you. I'm not here to tell you that everything is fine, because the truth is, your muscles aren't just getting tired. They are quietly, invisibly dying. Your body is undergoing a catastrophic structural collapse from the inside out. And for many of you, the fall that ends your independence forever is only days away. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert is 68 years old, a retired insurance adjuster from Columbus, Ohio. Now, Robert is a good man. He spent 40 years calculating risks for other people, making sure their homes and cars were protected. He lives in a beautiful suburban two-story home, the kind of place with a big yard he used to love mowing himself. But lately, Robert has been slowing down. He spends most of his days in his living room watching cable news, keeping an eye on the Buckeyes, and eating what most of us eat when we're tired, those frozen Salisbury steak dinners and a lot of black coffee. Robert noticed the signs. He noticed that his legs felt heavy, almost like he was walking through knee-deep water every time he went up to the second floor. He noticed that he started holding onto the banister with both hands. But he dismissed it. He told his wife, "It's just my arthritis acting up." Friends, that was his first mistake. He didn't realize that his muscle fibers were literally evaporating. It happened on a Tuesday. It had rained just a little bit in Columbus, just enough to make the driveway slick. Robert saw the mailman go by and decided to walk out to the mailbox. He was wearing his old slippers, you know the ones, the comfortable ones with no tread left on the bottom. As he reached the end of the driveway, his right foot hit a patch of wet concrete and slipped maybe 3 inches. Now, 10 years ago, Robert wouldn't have even thought about it. His brain would have sent a lightning-fast signal to his core and his quads, his muscles would have fired with explosive force, and he would have caught himself in a split second. Robert's muscles weren't there for him anymore. Because of a silent killer called sarcopenia, his fast-twitch muscle fibers had been replaced by marbled fat. When his brain screamed contract, there was nothing left to answer the call. He didn't stumble. He didn't recover. He fell like a dead weight. The sound of his hip hitting that pavement was like a dry branch snapping in the woods. And here's the most terrifying part. Robert was only 20 feet from his front door, but he couldn't get up. He tried to push himself up with his arms, but his triceps were too weak. He tried to roll over, but his core muscles had turned to mush. He lay there on that cold, wet pavement for 45 minutes. 45 minutes of pure, unadulterated panic, wondering if this was how it ended. He was looking at his own front door, thinking about his 401k, his grandkids, and the life he worked so hard for, all while feeling the heat leave his body. Finally, a neighbor walking a dog saw him and called 911. Can you imagine the terror in that ambulance? Robert wasn't just worried about his hip. He was a retired insurance man. He knew exactly what was coming. He was thinking about his private Medicare Advantage plan and that massive high deductible. He was thinking about the fact that if he couldn't walk, his kids would have to sell his house to pay for a skilled nursing facility. He saw his entire life savings, the money meant for his legacy, being drained away by medical bills and physical therapy. When the ER doctor looked at him, he didn't just see a broken bone. He saw a man whose body had failed him long before he ever stepped onto that driveway. The doctor told him plainly, "Robert, you're in stage 1 sarcopenia. Your muscles are withering away, and if we don't stop this, you will never walk unassisted again." I want to pause here because I need you to understand the why. I want to take you inside Robert's legs, inside your legs, for a slow-motion look at this cellular disaster. Imagine your muscles are like a high-performance V8 engine in a classic American muscle car. When you're young, that engine is clean, the pistons are firing, and the fuel lines are wide open. But as you age, and especially if you're sedentary, a process of biological rust begins to take hold. Think about your muscle fibers. You have 2 main types. You have your slow-twitch fibers for walking and standing, and your fast-twitch fibers for power and balance. In sarcopenia, it is those fast-twitch fibers, your emergency brakes, that die off first. It starts at the cellular level with something called mitochondrial dysfunction. Your mitochondria are the little power plants inside your cells. In a healthy person, they produce energy like a roaring furnace. But in Robert, and perhaps in you, those furnaces are going cold. They start leaking toxic byproducts called reactive oxygen species. Think of this like a car engine leaking corrosive acid all over the wiring. This acid starts to eat away at the protein structures that make your muscles contract. Normally, your body is a construction site. It's constantly tearing down old muscle and building new muscle. But as you hit your 60s, that construction crew goes on strike. Your body stops being able to process protein efficiently. This is called anabolic resistance. You could eat a steak, but your muscles can't see it. They stay hungry. They stay weak. Now look even closer. Look at the nerves. Every muscle fiber is connected to a nerve like a power line running from the street to your house. In a healthy body, these signals move at hundreds of miles per hour. But in a body with sarcopenia, those power lines start to fray. Protective coating, the myelin begins to thin out. When Robert slipped on that driveway, His brain sent a 911 emergency signal to his legs. Because his power lines were frayed and rusted, that signal arrived too late. By the time his muscles got the message to contract, he was already hitting the ground. And look at what's replacing that lost muscle. This is the part that doctors don't always explain well. Your muscle doesn't just disappear into thin air. It gets replaced by intramuscular adipose tissue. In plain English, your muscles become marbled with fat, just like a cheap, low-grade cut of beef you'd find in the bargain bin at the grocery store. This fat isn't just sitting there, it's biologically active. It's pumping out inflammatory chemicals that further dissolve the remaining healthy muscle. It is a vicious, downward spiral of decay. I am not fear-mongering, friends. I'm telling you the physiological reality of what happens when you spend too much time in that recliner. When you use your hands to push off your knees to stand up, you aren't just showing your age. You're failing what we call the chair stand test. That struggle is the sound of your engine seizing up. It is the warning light on your dashboard screaming that you are running on empty. If you ignore this, if you think Robert's story is just an isolated accident, you are gambling with your life. You're gambling with your dignity. You want to be the person who has to ring a bell for someone to come and help you go to the bathroom? Do you want to be the person whose 401k is handed over to a corporate nursing home chain because you can't climb 3 stairs? Listen to me closely. Your muscles are the organ of longevity. They are the armor that protects your bones and the engine that drives your independence. When they go, everything else goes with them. The metabolic collapse, the brain fog, the loss of balance, it all starts with this quiet withering of your fibers. But there is hope, and we are going to talk about how to stop this rust before it's too late. You don't have to be Robert. You don't have to wait for the 911 call to realize you've lost your strength. We are going to reclaim your power one fiber at a time. Stop this rust before it's too late. You don't have to be Robert. You don't have to wait for the 911 call to realize you've lost your strength. We are going to reclaim your power, one fiber at a time. Friends, I want to introduce you to someone who could be your neighbor, your sister, or maybe even you. I want to tell you about Martha. Martha is 74 years young, living her best life in a sun-drenched retirement community in Scottsdale, Arizona. She's a proud widow, a former school librarian who spends her mornings meticulously tending to her desert roses and her afternoons playing bridge with the girls. Martha is the pillar of her community. She's the one who brings the homemade lemon bars to every potluck. But Martha was hiding a secret even from herself. She noticed she was getting thinner. She called it getting her girlish figure back. She was proud of the fact that her old jeans from the 90s were suddenly fitting again. She felt light. But that lightness, friends, was a visual lie. It was a mask for a physical catastrophe unfolding inside her skin. Because Martha lived on what I call the tea and toast diet. A little jam and bread for breakfast, a light salad for lunch, maybe a small cup of soup for dinner. She thought she was being healthy. She thought she was eating light to stay fit. But listen to me closely. Martha's body was starving in plain sight. Does this sound familiar? Maybe you've noticed your legs feeling a little hollowed out by mid-afternoon. Maybe you've had those near misses where your foot catches on an area rug and your heart jumps into your throat as you stumble, just barely catching yourself on the hallway wall. Martha had those moments too. She brushed them off. "Oh, I'm just getting older," she'd tell her daughter on the phone. "Just a bit clumsy today." One Tuesday afternoon, the Arizona sun was beating down. Martha was in her backyard, pruning a large brick-lined planter. She reached just a little too far for a stray weed. Her center of gravity shifted by only 2 inches. Now, in a healthy person, the brain sends a lightning-fast signal to the quadriceps to fire, to brace, to stabilize. But when Martha's brain sent that signal, there was no one home. She didn't just trip.
She collapsed.
It was like a controlled demolition of a building. Her legs didn't even try to catch her. They simply folded like a cheap card table. She hit the edge of that brick planter with a sound her neighbor later described as a dry branch snapping in the wind. That was the sound of her femur, the strongest bone in the human body, shattering into 3 pieces. Imagine the panic, friends. The Scottsdale heat radiating off the pavement, Martha lying there, unable to move, the searing pain radiating through her hip. The sound of the sirens wailing through the quiet cul-de-sac, the terrifying, sterile, bright lights of the ER. And then the conversation no one wants to have. As the doctors looked at her scans, they weren't just looking at the break. They were looking at the tragedy around the bone. The doctor looked at Martha's daughter and said, "The break is bad, but the reason she fell is worse. Your mother has advanced sarcopenia. Her muscles have been quietly dying for years." Martha wasn't just worried about the pain. She lay in that hospital bed, heart racing, thinking about her 401k. She knew what a shattered femur meant. It meant months of specialized rehab. It meant a nursing home stay that could cost $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a month. She saw her independence, her house, her beautiful desert roses, and her hard-earned retirement savings all vanishing into a whirlpool of medical bills. She was terrified that she'd never walk back through her own front door again. She was terrified of becoming a burden, of having her children have to change her clothes and help her to the bathroom. Now I want to do a slow-motion analysis of what was actually happening inside Martha's legs, because this is exactly what is happening to millions of Americans over the age of 60 right now. Just like we saw earlier with the concept of internal rust, your muscles are not just for lifting weights, they are your metabolic armor. Think of your muscle tissue like the structural framing of a house. When you're young, those 2x4 studs are thick, strong, and reinforced. But as we age, if we don't give the body the raw materials it needs, a process of molecular theft begins. You see, your body is a survival machine. It has a hierarchy of needs. Your heart needs to beat, your lungs need to breathe, and your brain needs to think. All of these processes require amino acids, the building blocks of protein. If you're like Martha, eating tea and toast and consuming less than 40 grams of protein a day, your body looks at its amino acid pool and sees that it's empty. It's like a V8 engine trying to run on an empty tank of gas. So what does the body do? It doesn't just stop. It begins to harvest itself. In a slow-motion horror movie inside your thighs, your body releases enzymes that act like microscopic scissors. These enzymes go into your muscle fibers, specifically the type 2 fast-twitch fibers, the ones responsible for balance and power, and they start snipping. They break down your own muscle tissue to send those amino acids to your vital organs. Your body is literally eating its own legs to keep your heart beating. Step by step, the density of the muscle fiber thins out. Imagine a thick, lush rope being unraveled thread by thread until it's nothing but a flimsy string. This is sarcopenia. This is the silent physical collapse. But it gets even more detailed, and this is where it becomes truly dangerous. Inside the muscle, there is a crosstalk between the muscle and the bone. We used to think bones were just dry sticks. They aren't. They are living tissue. When your muscles are strong and they pull on the bone, they send a signal, "Stay strong, we need you." But as Martha's muscles withered away, that signal went silent. Without the mechanical stress from healthy muscle, her bones began to demineralize. This is secondary osteopenia. Her bones were becoming porous, like a piece of Swiss cheese or a rusted-out frame on an old Ford truck. By the time she reached for that weed in her garden, her muscles were too thin to stabilize her, and her bones were too brittle to survive even a minor impact. Listen to me closely. Martha's quadriceps didn't just get weak. They had become a dead zone. The neuromuscular junctions, The places where the nerves plug into the muscle were literally unplugging. It's like a lamp with a frayed cord. You flip the switch, but the light doesn't come on. When she started to stumble, her brain flipped the switch to balance, but the frayed cords in her legs couldn't deliver the electricity. She fell because her internal emergency brakes had been stripped for parts by her own metabolism. Does this sound familiar? Do you find yourself using the arms of the chair to push yourself up? Do you feel like you're walking on eggshells when you're on uneven ground? Friends, that is not just aging. That is your body's alarm system screaming at you that your armor is failing. I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that the distance between your current life and a permanent stay in an assisted living facility is often just one weak muscle fiber and one slick floor away. When you lose your muscle, you lose your metabolism. When you lose your metabolism, you lose your ability to burn fat, your blood sugar spikes, and your risk for dementia skyrockets because your muscles are actually responsible for cleaning out the toxins in your brain. We saw this with Martha. In the ER, the doctors explained that her tea and toast habit had put her into a state of chronic nitrogen debt. Her body was in a catabolic state, a state of breaking down rather than building up. Think of it like this. Your body is a bank account. Every day, you have withdrawals of energy and cellular repair. If you don't make deposits of high-quality protein and resistance movement, the bank doesn't just close your account. It starts repossessing your furniture. It repossesses your mobility. It repossesses your ability to walk your dog. It repossesses your dignity. Martha's femur break was catastrophic because there was no padding left. Usually, a healthy layer of muscle acts as a shock absorber. It distributes the force of a fall, but Martha had no shock absorbers left. The impact went straight into the brittle, unarmored bone. I want you to visualize your legs right now. I want you to think about the fibers deep inside your thighs. Are they thick and resilient like a powerful V8 engine ready to roar to life? Or are they becoming thin, stringy, and fragile, like an old bridge that's been neglected for 40 years? The tragedy of Martha is that it was preventable. She didn't have to lose her Scottsdale home. She didn't have to watch her retirement savings vanish into a rehabilitation center's ledger. She didn't have to spend her nights crying in a hospital bed, wondering if she'd ever be able to use the bathroom without someone's help. And you don't have to either. We are going to talk about how to stop this molecular theft. We are going to look at how to plug those neuromuscular junctions back in. We are going to learn how to feed the machine so it stops eating itself, because your independence is the most valuable asset you own. Your 401k doesn't matter if you aren't mobile enough to enjoy it. Your house doesn't matter if you're trapped in a bedroom because you can't navigate the stairs. Friends, stay with me, because what I'm going to show you next is the exact blueprint for rebuilding that armor, regardless of whether you're 60, 70, or 85. We are going to turn those stringy fibers back into steel cables. We are going to stop the fall before it ever happens. We are going to reclaim your strength, because you're not just getting weaker. You are a powerhouse that just needs the right fuel and the right signals to turn the lights back on. Listen, I know it's scary. I know the thought of a nursing home keeps you up at night. I know the fear of medical bankruptcy is real. But knowledge is the antidote to fear. When you understand the slow-motion mechanism of sarcopenia, you gain the power to reverse it. You are the mechanic of your own body. And today, we're opening the hood and fixing the engine. Friends, listen to me closely, because what I am about to tell you is the difference between spending your golden years on a cruise ship or spending them in a sterile, white-walled room listening to the hum of an oxygen machine. Does this sound familiar? You wake up, you feel a little stiff. You notice it's a bit harder to unscrew the jar of pickles, or maybe you find yourself using the armrests to heave yourself out of your favorite recliner. You tell yourself, I'm just getting older. It's part of the deal. I am here to tell you with every ounce of professional urgency I have. That is a lie. It is a dangerous, life-threatening lie. What you're experiencing isn't just aging. It is a silent, predatory disease called sarcopenia, and it is effectively eating you alive from the inside out. Think about Jim. Jim is 79 years old, living just outside of Austin, Texas. Now Jim is a man's man. He spent 40 years as a construction foreman, swinging hammers, hauling lumber and barking orders under that hot Texas sun. He's got that rugged, tough-it-out American spirit we all admire. He lives alone in a beautiful rural ranch house, the kind of place where he used to spend his Saturdays mowing the 3-acre lawn and hosting big family BBQs. But lately, Jim's world has been shrinking. He doesn't go out to the shed as much. He's been trading those steaks and eggs for easy meals, mostly white toast, a little jam, maybe some canned soup. Friends, look at your own hands right now. Jim didn't notice it, but if you looked at the webbing between his thumb and index finger, you'd see a deep, sunken crater. If you looked at his temples, you'd see they were hollowing out like a caved-in roof on an abandoned building. This is the visual signature of a body that is desperate for fuel. Because Jim wasn't eating enough protein, his body began a process of self-cannibalization. Listen to me, your muscle is not just for looking good at the beach. Your muscle is your body's internal 401k. It is a metabolic organ. It is your backup battery. And Jim's battery was at 1%. One Tuesday, Jim caught a simple run-of-the-mill respiratory infection, a summer cold. For you or me, it's a few days of Kleenex and tea. But for Jim, this was the trigger for a total metabolic collapse. See, when your body fights an infection, it needs an army of white blood cells and antibodies. To build that army, your body needs amino acids. If you aren't eating them, your body goes to the bank, your muscles. But Jim's bank account was overdrawn. He had no reserves left. The slow-motion disaster began in his bedroom. Jim tried to sit up to reach for his phone, but his core muscles, the rectus abdominis, and the obliques that used to be like iron, were now like wet tissue paper. He didn't fall, he simply lost the ability to move against gravity. He was bed-locked. For 2 days, Jim lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, unable to even roll his body over to reach a glass of water. Imagine the terror. You're a man who built skyscrapers, and now you can't even lift your own torso. You're thinking about the 911 call you can't make? You're thinking about your 401k, the money you saved for your grandkids being drained away by the $10,000 a month cost of a skilled nursing facility because you can no longer care for yourself. When Jim's son finally found him, it was a scene of absolute horror. Jim was severely dehydrated, but worse, he was suffering from rhabdomyolysis. Let's break down exactly what that means in slow motion, because this is what happens when sarcopenia wins. Inside Jim's body, his muscle cells were literally disintegrating. Imagine a V8 engine that has run out of oil. The pistons start grinding against the cylinders, creating intense heat and friction, until the metal begins to shave off and circulate through the fuel lines. That's what was happening to Jim. His muscle fibers were rupturing, spilling a protein called myoglobin into his bloodstream. Now, myoglobin is a large, clunky molecule. Your kidneys are your body's filtration system, like the delicate paper filter in your coffee maker. But myoglobin is like pouring thick, gritty sludge into that filter. In slow motion, those microscopic tubes in Jim's kidneys, the nephrons, began to clog. They became inflamed. They started to tear. The sewage pipes of his body backed up, sending toxins swirling back into his blood. This is how just getting weaker turns into multi-organ failure in a matter of hours. In the ER, the doctors were blunt. They told Jim's son that Jim's lack of muscle mass left him with zero physiological resilience. He had no armor. A minor cold became a life-threatening event because he had no metabolic buffer. Friends, I am not fear-mongering. I am telling you the biological reality of the American senior. When you lose your fast-twitch muscle fibers, the ones responsible for catching your balance when you trip over a rug, you are a ticking time bomb. When you lose your lean mass, you lose your ability to regulate blood sugar, leading to a syrup-like thickness in your blood that destroys your arteries like rust on a pipe. Does this sound familiar? Are you struggling with those 3 steps into the house? Are you noticing your legs looking thinner while your belly gets softer? That is the sound of your independence alarm going off. If you don't heed it, you're one minor trip away from the ER, the astronomical medical bills that can wipe out a lifetime of savings in a single month, and the heartbreaking moment of handing over the keys to your home because you can't walk to the bathroom by yourself. But listen to me closely. There is hope. You are the mechanic of your own body. Just like you can rebuild a rusted-out engine with the right parts and the right fuel, you can reverse sarcopenia. You can force your body to stop the self-eating process and start the rebuilding process. You can regain that grip strength. You can fill in those hollow temples. You can ensure that you are never bed-locked like Jim, wondering if anyone will find you. We are going to open the hood. We are going to look at the exact amino acid blueprints your body needs to stop the sludge and start the growth. Because you worked too hard for your retirement to let it be stolen by a disease you can fight back against. Stay with me, because the rules I'm about to give you are the repair manual for the rest of your life. Friends, listen to me very closely. You just heard about Jim, a man who spent his life building homes, a man who was the backbone of his community in Austin, Texas, reduced to lying on a floor for 2 days because his muscles literally ran out of fuel. I'm not telling you these stories to scare you. I'm telling you these stories because I do not want your children to find you in that same position. I don't want you to watch your 401k, the money you spent 40 years saving, vanish in 3 months to pay for a skilled nursing facility because you can't stand up on your own. You worked too hard for your retirement to let it be stolen by a disease you can fight back against. Stay with me because the rules I'm about to give you are the repair manual for the rest of your life. These are the rules that separate the seniors who travel the world from the seniors who are trapped in a bed, waiting for someone to help them go to the bathroom. And the best part? These rules don't cost a dime. Now, the first thing we have to address is what I call the protein protection protocol. Does this sound familiar? You wake up, you have a cup of coffee and maybe a piece of white toast or a bowl of cereal. You think you're eating light to stay healthy? But listen to me, you're actually starving your muscles. Think of your muscles like a brick wall protecting your independence. Every single day, Mother Nature is coming by and stealing a few bricks from that wall. If you don't put new bricks back in, the wall collapses. When you eat like Martha did, that tea and toast diet, your body enters a state of emergency. See, your heart and your brain need protein to function. If you don't eat it, your body doesn't just say, "Oh well." No, it goes on a hunting mission. It sends out stress hormones that travel to your thighs and your glutes, and it literally starts harvesting your own muscle tissue. It dissolves your legs to keep your heart beating. So, here's your first life-saving rule. You must hit 30 grams of protein before 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking about 2 or 3 eggs, a cup of Greek yogurt, or even a can of tuna if you have to. When that protein hits your stomach, it's broken down into amino acids. These amino acids are like a construction crew that rushes to your muscles, patching up the holes and reinforcing the foundation. Without this, you're effectively melting away from the inside out. Don't let your body eat itself. Eat those eggs like your life depends on it, because it does. Moving on to the second rule, and this one is the ultimate save-your-life move. I call it the 5-minute furniture resistance. You saw what happened to Bob in Ohio. He was just going to the mailbox, something he'd done 1,000 times. But because he'd been spending his days in that recliner, his fast-twitch muscle fibers, the ones that act like an emergency brake when you stumble, had gone dormant. They were like a rusty engine that hasn't been started in 5 years. When he slipped, his brain sent a signal to his legs saying, "Catch me," but the wires were frayed and the muscles were too weak to respond. He went down like a ton of bricks. I want you to stop what you're doing and think about your favorite chair. Every single time you get up from that chair today, I want you to sit back down and stand up again 5 times in a row. Don't use your hands. Don't push off your knees. I want you to feel that burn in your quads. Let's look at this in slow motion. When you push off your knees with your palms, you're telling your legs they aren't needed anymore. You're telling your brain to let those muscles wither away. But when you stand up using only your legs, you're forcing blood and oxygen into those muscle fibers. You are creating micro tears that, when paired with that protein we talked about, heal back stronger. You're building the armor that Martha's doctor said she was missing. This is how you prevent a shattered femur. This is how you stay out of the ER and keep your savings in the bank where they belong. Now, this third rule is something almost everyone ignores until it's too late. I call it the grip of life. Remember how Jim had that hollowing in the webbing of his hands? That wasn't just old age. That was a flashing red light on the dashboard of his health. Doctors have found that your grip strength is one of the single best predictors of whether you're going to end up in a nursing home. Listen to me. Your hands are the end of a long chain of nerves and muscles that start in your brain. When your grip goes, it means your entire neuromuscular system is failing. It means you won't be able to grab a railing if you trip on the stairs. It means you won't be able to open a jar, and eventually you won't be able to dress yourself. The rule is simple. The kitchen counter squeeze. While you're waiting for your coffee to brew or your toast to pop, I want you to take a tennis ball, or even just a rolled-up pair of thick socks, and squeeze it as hard as you can for 5 seconds. Do it 10 times with each hand. I want you to visualize what's happening inside your forearm. As you squeeze, the tendons are tightening, pulling on the bone, signaling your body to keep that bone dense and strong. You're clearing out the sludge in your nervous system and keeping the communication lines open between your brain and your limbs. This is the difference between a minor stumble and a catastrophic, life-altering fall. Don't let your grip slip away, or your independence will go right along with it. Finally, we have to talk about the hydration lubricant rule. Muscles are 75% water. When you're dehydrated, which most Americans over 65 are, chronically, your muscles become like old dry leather. They lose their elasticity. They become brittle. Think about a dry sponge. If you try to bend it, it snaps. But if that sponge is full of water, it's pliable. It's resilient. Your muscles are the same way. When Jim got that simple respiratory infection, his body was already so dry and so depleted of muscle-stored water that his system just locked up. He couldn't even sit up to reach for his phone. He was bedlocked because his engine had run out of oil. You need to drink 8 ounces of water before you allow yourself that first cup of coffee. Coffee is a diuretic. It pulls water out of your system. If you start your day with coffee on an empty, dehydrated stomach, you are literally shrinking your muscles before the day even begins. You're turning your vascular system into a dried-up creek bed. Friends, I'm not asking you to run a marathon. I'm not asking you to join an expensive gym or buy fancy equipment. I'm asking you to protect the one thing that no amount of money can buy back once it's gone, your ability to move freely in your own home. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Do you want to be the person who can still mow their own lawn, play with their grandkids on the floor, and drive themselves to the grocery store? Or do you want to be the person whose children are sitting in a lawyer's office, figuring out which assets to sell to pay for your assisted living? The choice isn't made in the doctor's office. It's made in your kitchen, in your living room, and in your daily habits. It's made when you decide to eat that protein, when you do those chair stands, and when you keep your body hydrated. You've worked too hard, and you've come too far to let sarcopenia steal your sunset years. You are the captain of your ship. Don't let the engine fail now. Take these rules, put them into practice today, not tomorrow, today, and let's make sure your best years are still ahead of you. I believe in you, and I know you have the strength to fight back. Stay strong, stay independent, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, friends, that's all for today's topic. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of the most important life-saving takeaways. Please etch these into your memory. Number 1. Stop dismissing your weakness as just aging. If you find it hard to stand up from a low chair without using your arms, your muscles are sending you an emergency SOS that you cannot afford to ignore. Number 2. You must treat your protein intake and light resistance training like your most important daily prescription. Without the right fuel and a little bit of work, your body will literally harvest your own muscle for energy, leaving you hollowed out and fragile. Number 3. Balance is your ultimate insurance policy against the nursing home. Spend just 5 minutes a day practicing your stability, because that one split-second reaction during a stumble is the only thing standing between you and a life-changing fracture. My friends, true health isn't an unreachable goal, it's hidden in the tiny choices we make every single day. I hope today's guide truly hits home for you. If you found this helpful, please don't be stingy. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Your single share might literally save a life and keep a family whole. I'll see you in the next video.